There are two things that I would like to ask you to do when watching these videos. The first is to please watch them in their entirety. And the second is really simple. If you feel any sort of emotion at all after watching these videos, and I promise you there's going to be some really funny ones, and then there's going to be one like this which is like a little bit more serious, please share them with someone else. So whether that person is your mother or your father or your brother or your sister or some random person that you meet on the subway or someone that you meet in 7-Eleven, whoever it is, just share them with someone else. Unfortunately, this story does not start out on the happiest of notes, but I promise you that it ends on a very positive one. So here we go. When my mom was little, she was sexually abused by her older brother. She likes to use the term sexually explored, but given that she said that she would often find herself hiding in the attic or escaping into the woods out of fear, it seems to me like it was a little bit more serious than that. Now, my mom's older brother was born a little bit premature, so he had a lot of health problems growing up, and we don't really know what all of that means, but it's just something to consider. My mom was also the middle child of a family that had 5 kids. Growing up in Indiana, a lower middle class family, Irish Catholic, so this was never a situation that was talked about. It was just sort of, we move on. And so my mom did. She grew up, had a pretty great life, went to see a Beatles concert, graduated from Indiana University with 2 degrees, and then she moved west. She moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where she picked up a job at a local news affiliate. Now, my mom was somewhat of a shy person, so she never really wanted to be in front of the camera. She never had this passion to be a star, but she loved telling stories and she loved knowing other people's situations and being able to communicate them to others. I guess I kind of get that from her. So she became, or I guess she sort of fell into being a producer. And somehow, by the luck of the draw, my mom was really good at it. And she won her first Emmy for a documentary called Rage in Santa Fe, which was about the prison riots that happened in New Mexico. This upward trajectory continued and pushed her into larger markets in San Diego and Los Angeles. And before my mom even knew it, she had 3 Emmys and was receiving a NAPTE award on the stage of Radio City Music Hall. My mom has some amazing stories to tell, whether it's her talking about expeditions that she went on in South America or getting snowbound as she drove across the United States, even getting hit on by Arnold Schwarzenegger at an intersection here in Los Angeles. My mom was building a fantastic career for herself and a really, really fun life. Here's a picture of my mom when she was dating this plastic surgeon, I think, who wanted to whisk her away and marry her, move her to the East Coast and make her a trophy wife. She wasn't really into that, so she turned him down politely, but I still think this picture is pretty awesome. I don't fully understand how this next part happened. I'm going to be fully honest about that. All I know is that my mom ended up in San Diego, California in this weird sort of limbo period. She was supposed to move to Washington, D.C. for this new producing gig that fell through. I think it had something to do with Ted Turner and Jane Fonda, but I don't know. Basically, my mom was stuck in San Diego, and she met my father. One thing led to another, and then my mom was kind of knocked up. There were people in her life who saw that as a negative, because my father is not white, and for some reason that was a problem. My mom found out that she was pregnant with me on New Year's Eve of 1992, which for her was a miracle. She was going to be turning 43 that April and had gone through miscarriages before. For my dad, this was a nightmare. He had already got 2 other women knocked up with children, and this was going to be his 3rd. Now, my mom obviously wanted to keep me. My dad was really, really, really against it. So that caused a lot of problems between the 2 of them. And that was never a relationship that I think was ever going to work out anyway. But she had me on September 4th, 1993. And my mom basically threw away her career to raise me. She sacrificed everything in her life. She spent so much money on the pregnancy because it was of high risk due to her age. She gave up job opportunities because she knew that she didn't want me to be raised by a nanny or a butler or whatever. And then my dad was not in a state to be able to support me as a child. He was a party boy. He had no career aspirations. He was a good enough guy. He taught me how to ride a bike, but he wasn't supportive in any way. So my mom raised me by herself. She became a freelance editor, helping publish 2 nonfiction autobiographies, and then somehow pulled together gig after gig to make ends meet. But it was nothing near the lifestyle that she had been living previous. Then, in 2003, 4 things happened, back to back to back to back. Number 1, my dad went to prison for life. And although this wasn't that big of a deal because my mom and him were never married and never really got along very much, it was an immensely traumatic situation because she knew that eventually she would have to tell me, but she wasn't comfortable enough yet, or I don't think she really knew how to do that because I was in the 5th grade. 2, my mom was in a very stable relationship with this fantastic guy for about 2 years. And then one day, he just fell off a ladder while he was painting his house. Now, he didn't die, but he ended up in the hospital, and my mom went to visit him. And there was this other girl there that my mom had never known before, and this guy was like, "I don't need you anymore," to my mom. 3, remember how my mom had been abused by her brother? Well, she finally wanted to open up about that to her older sister. But her older sister didn't want to talk about it, and basically hung up on her 4 or 5 times in a row. And then she found out, my mom, that a younger sister had been also abused by her brother. So that was a very traumatic situation to be in. And 4, my mom lost her job, the most stable job that she had had for a while. Basically, her employers decided to retire and just laid off everyone. That was 2003 for my mother. And slowly but surely, she entered the worst depression that I think almost anyone has ever known. And she became addicted to prescription pain medication and alcohol. There were some nights where my mom was flailing around on her bed, making demonic noises, and I'm in the room just on the other side of the wall, trying to study or watch TV or live some sort of normal life. There were moments where my mom was so drunk that her head was just face first into the toilet with vomit, and I had to pull her and drag her across the floor and pick her up and put her back into bed. There was one time where my mom thought it was a great idea to drive me and my best friend to the ocean because she wanted to see it, not sober. And then I think on the way back, she ran through 4 or 5 stop signs. Basically, things were a nightmare. But somehow, I had to make it look like it wasn't a nightmare because I had to be the strong one for the family because that's just all I've known. But 7th grade for me was a nightmare in a different way because I was grappling with the fact that I was gay. I was made fun of constantly by these terrible 8th graders because that's all 8th graders know how to do is just be mean. I was kind of fat. The friend group that I had was arguing with each other because most of my friends were girls, and girls love to argue in middle school, or just girls love to argue. So things got really bad. After that summer, for some reason though, the summer after my 7th grade, I looked at myself and I made a very conscious decision that I was not going to let any of this affect me in life. That I was going to pull myself up by my bootstraps and I was going to be popular and fun and as normal as possible. So I did. I just put on a brave face and I just went out into the world. And I lived the next 9 years of my life like that, with a giant mask over my face, so that no one would know what my life was really like. And I think it worked, but inside I was just decaying, and I didn't really know that until now. Anyway, moving on with the story, I left middle school to start high school, and I was so excited because unlike some people who dread high school, I was looking forward to all of these new opportunities for me. So I started getting involved with theater. I joined the swim team. I was challenging myself academically. I joined clubs. I made a whole bunch of new friends, and things were really great. So I was still wearing this mask, but I was living a fantastic, youthful life. In the meantime, my mom was falling deeper and deeper into depression, to the point where she had pushed away nearly all of her friends. She had no idea how to be financially responsible, and she was still addicted to alcohol and pain medication. So my life at home was still a living nightmare, but no one else knew because I was hiding it all inside. Then I remember this one friend that we had, this one family friend, who moved in with us because my mom literally could not afford the apartment that we were living in anymore. Now, a little more information about this guy. He was great and all. He took me fishing all the time when I was younger, and he was always very kind to me. But he was bipolar and also self-medicated with alcohol, so that was a really bad situation. And I remember this one day, I think it was close to the end of my sophomore year of high school, that my mom and him got into a really bad altercation, to the point where he pushed her and she was flat out on the floor. I come running out of my room and stand up for my mom and basically say that this guy is never going to touch her ever again. Now that sounds like a really great and brave thing to do, but it also meant that he was going to move out within a few days, and my mom and I lost our apartment. I didn't really know how to deal with this situation because I was still wearing a mask, but a ton of my friends that I had from middle school and high school came over and helped me pack up all my stuff and move my mom and I into a hotel for a little bit. I think everyone thought things would be okay because my mom would wake up and realize that she needed to be the responsible, fantastic human being that she had been for so many years of my life. But that just didn't happen because she was dealing with all of these demons that were just decaying her mind. So my mom and I were in a hotel for my entire junior year of my life. And when I say hotel, I should really say like dilapidated shack full of shit, because this room was about 12 foot by 12 foot in a really, really, really run down building. And it was awful. There was one double bed, a microwave, a little mini fridge, a shower with a shower curtain that barely worked. It was bad. Like really bad. I shared a double bed with my mom for the entire junior year of my life, as she's falling deeper and deeper into depression. It was the most important thing to me to maintain this sense of normalcy so that no one else knew what was going on. I wanted to maintain my academic career, which was doing pretty well, and I loved how rigorous my classes were. I had gotten a job at American Eagle to make ends meet for myself so I could afford the things that normal high schoolers have. I loved swim. I was super dedicated to that. I loved being in all the school comedies because I love comedy and I love being around other people. And then I had to maintain some sort of social life. So I just kept faking it. There was this one time where my mom had just left. I had no idea where she went. But I was studying, then went to bed, and there's this bang on the door around 2 a.m. And these two drag queens had pulled my mom up multiple flights of stairs because she was just gone. I open the door and she's hanging there, and I look at these drag queens, and I swear to God they looked at me with the saddest eyes, but I'm sure they were just thinking, "You poor fag." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, but thanks for bringing my mom back." And then I put her to bed, and I went to bed, and I went to school the next day. Also, a little bit of backstory, or I guess sort of backtracking. While all this was happening, every single morning my mom would wake up and make me lunch and ensure that I got off to school at the right time with a smile on my face. So don't get me wrong, she was a nightmare, but she also was the smartest human being in the entire world. She helped me edit papers and focus on school, and it was so supportive at the same time, but was just so not at the same time. So it's really weird for me to talk about that. It got to the point where my mom couldn't maintain this hotel anymore. And to be honest, I don't even know how she did it for a year. If she couldn't afford the rent that we were paying at an apartment, I have no idea how she made things work at this hotel room. But basically, the money stopped flowing again. And it was now or never to basically save the situation. So this one family of my best friend decided to just adopt me. So I went into senior year of high school living with one of my best friends in a house that was really far away from my school, but it was the best possible alternative. And then my mom, I think, spent a few nights living on the street. And although that sounds awful, I'm pretty sure that was the best possible thing that could have happened to her, because she had finally hit rock bottom. The free fall had stopped, and she realized that she needed to get help. So while I was living with one of my best friends and living senior year and having a great time, my mom entered some sort of rehabilitation facility. And I don't exactly know what happened, but she started to get better. On December 10th, 2010, I was admitted to Stanford University for the class of 2015, which is probably the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I'm so thankful for it. But I was like, how the hell did that happen? I downplayed all the situations in my life to a point where I thought that was normal. I thought everyone went through something like that. And realistically, people go through a ton of really, really tough shit, but I devalued my own situation. So getting in, it was great, but I didn't think I was worthy of going at all. Plus, I didn't think I was really that smart. And I waited until the very, very last day to decide between Stanford and USC. So I go, and I get there, and I realize that I have no idea how to talk to anyone there. Because a lot of the people that I went to school with came from a lot of money, or at least more stable family backgrounds, or what at least seemed like more stable family backgrounds, because I have no idea what people have really gone through, right? But it overwhelmed me to the point where I was terrified. Yeah, so I made the best of it. You know, I made some really good friends, and then I made some really good friends who I thought were really good friends, which we'll get to in a second, and things were fine. Then winter quarter hits of freshman year, and I realized that I'm pretty unhappy because a lot of these really good friends that I thought were really good friends came from what I think are really well-off backgrounds and were spending money like crazy. So the genius that I am decides that I need to spend money like crazy, because if I spend money and I look like I come from money, then I'll have more friends, which was a terrible idea. I totally get it. It's a really shitty situation, right? But whatever. Winter quarter hits, and I'm feeling pretty down. My mom, on the other hand, is slowly crawling back up this ladder. So I've been able to start calling her more and having more heart-to-hearts, and she just reminds me that everything will be okay, but if it's not right now, then I can transfer and I can do whatever I want because I'm the captain of my own ship. And that was a really great thing for her to say, because it steered me in the right direction and it put my head just sort of back on track a little bit. It's now spring quarter, and I'm so excited because spring quarter is when Stanford University students who elect to go through Rush. Now, I don't think I knew this at the time, but the reason why I was so excited about the opportunity to join a frat is because I was seeking a father figure that I had just never had in my entire life. And I thought that, frat brothers would be that. Now, that didn't really pan out the way I wanted it to. I didn't join a frat, and whatever, you win some, you lose some. But a ton of the friends that I had from freshman year that I thought I was really close to, and that I'm still sort of close to, they did get into frats and sororities, and so I just didn't interact with them as much, which was weird and kind of sad. But at the same time, I had a boyfriend, or I started to see this one guy, and he became my boyfriend, and it was great because I was getting to know his friends. Now, I wasn't the best boyfriend by any means because I had all of this emotional baggage that I still needed to deal with, and it was really, really selfish for me to sort of unload that on him. So we broke up at the beginning of sophomore year, and that was really shitty because he was the first person that I had really, really cared about, in that way. But I realized that my mom had gone through a more terrible breakup with this guy that she'd been dating for 2 years who falls off a ladder and then chooses another girl at a hospital. So I call her, of course, because she's starting to get better. And I'm crying and ranting and all this stuff, and she just has the most positive things to say. She's just so nurturing and reminds me that it's not my fault and that I'll get through it, and it was fantastic. So that happened. And then another really great thing happened, which is I lucked out with the best possible sophomore year roommate I could have ever asked for, and he's now one of my best friends. So I became really good friends with him and his friend group and his girlfriend, and then I spent a lot of time nurturing the other relationships that I had at Stanford, and things really just started to get so much better, slowly but surely. And I didn't know this, but my mom was also starting to get better and better, slowly but surely. I was still terrified of going back to San Diego, though, because I thought that everything back there was just going to be the same old that I had known, and then I was introduced to this fantastic life at Stanford that I just wanted to cling to like nothing else. And then, of course, I didn't want anyone at Stanford to know what my life was like, so I just kept wearing a mask, But anyway, things are getting better. Junior year hits, and I'm now a freshman RA, and oh my god, these 85 freshmen reminded me what it's like to be a real person, because every single one of them are awesome. Like, seriously, you guys are awesome. So yeah, that was a fantastic junior year. Friendships are getting better, and my mom is slowly getting better, and I go to Spain, and I'm traveling, and all of these things are great. But I'm realizing that Stanford is turning me into a kind of evil and dark person. And I don't mean like seriously evil, but I meant that I was a really judgmental person, and I didn't used to be. But Stanford, it's weird because it's an amazing place, but it also instills these really elitist values that I hadn't known before, that I was slowly becoming, I was enjoying. I guess that's a good word to say. I was starting to enjoy all these really elitist values. Just a mental check mark on that, okay? Anyway, now it's senior year. I get into a fantastic house. I love my friend group. I love my academics. A little side note, by the way, I decided to be a communication major, which a lot of people at Stanford view as like a not real major, but those classes taught me so much, and that department is so loving and caring and nurturing. So I just gotta give a shout out to the communication department at Stanford because all of you guys rock. Moving on, senior year is fantastic. All of these really wonderful things happen, and I'm around all these positive people. And then, one thing leads to the next, and it's graduation. And I'm like, wow, my time at Stanford has come to an end. Now, graduation is when a whole bunch of people's families come into town, and I had never really known what the word family meant, but I knew that my mom had to be there, and she had made such a fantastic recovery over these past 12 years. And then I just didn't know. I was so terrified of introducing her to anyone. But I knew that the friends that I had, I had to not open up fully, but there needed to be something normal that happened. To talk about this, I need to introduce a person who hasn't been discussed yet. And her name is Nora, and she is a rock. Like, seriously, a rock. While my mom was basically a demon, she was supporting me financially, making sure that all of the things that a normal middle school and high school student and college student gets to do, that I was able to fulfill that. And she doesn't come from a lot of financial means, but she's worked her butt off helping people, so thank you so much. Basically, Nora orchestrates this giant dinner for me and all of the friends that I had, all of our families and stuff. And my mom is there, and she just kicks butt because, it's evident that she has a story, but she doesn't look like an alcoholic. She doesn't look like a pill popper. She doesn't look like a person who had just been through 12 years of the worst depression that anyone knows. She looks like a solid, beautiful, loving mom, which she is. So I'm so thankful that that happened. After graduation, I go on a 6-week backpacking trip through Europe and spend more money that I probably just shouldn't have spent, but whatever. And I have a fantastic time with friends, and I love traveling, so exploring the world and meeting people is just amazing. And if I could just do that for my whole life, I think I would just be the happiest person ever. And then I move here to Los Angeles, California, where I am right now. And this was a really, really good decision for me, and I'm going to tell you why. Although the Bay Area has a lot going for it, there are really intelligent people trying to tackle some really, really tough problems that the world is facing. People don't talk about their feelings a lot, which for me is a little weird. And I'm going to give you a very tangible example of why. Here in Los Angeles, there are a ton of billboards, right? For movies, for TV shows and all of that. But on a lot of them, there's a billboard for Tyler Oakley's Dare to Be You YouTube campaign, which I know, I get it. I'm using the YouTube platform for this video. But the YouTube headquarters are just a few miles south of San Francisco, and there are no Dare to Be You billboards in the city of San Francisco. It's just up there. So instead, it's more important that Amazon can deliver things to your car than it is to have real emotions. And for me, that's strange because we live in this world where we have emojis, which thankfully Apple has provided us so that we can package our feelings and put them into a weird little symbol and toss them to other people. But we don't grapple with emotions anymore like we used to. Or at least I personally don't think we do that. But for some reason, and I don't know why, even though there's a ton of superficiality here in Los Angeles, I've met the realest people here too. So that's just a little nugget that kind of go over. You're probably wondering, why did he just do that? Why did he put his entire life story on the internet? Well, here's why. Just a few months ago, I started feeling those depressive tendencies again, and I needed to confront them. So I did, and I talked to people about them, and I felt so much better about it. My mom is doing so much better, so I would just call her whenever I was feeling sad, or I'd confide in some really good friends in ways that I never did before because I was never this open. And I felt so much better after. Just being honest made me feel so much better. And people, I don't think, do that anymore. Or at least not to the extent that they used to. Because we're so obsessed with our phones and our tablets and what's going on in tech that we forget what it's like to be human. So this story is for you, no matter who you are, or where you are, or what socioeconomic background you come from, because everyone in the world has problems. And I'm not saying go spill your problems to everyone, but I think it's really great to be upfront and honest about things, which I just wasn't for a really long time in my life. But honestly, this story is for my mom, because she gave up her career for me to raise me as a single parent. And then she went through 12 years of a demonic depression that ripped her of all of her intelligence and all of her confidence and all of her stature and everything. And now she's doing super great and she has me, but she has kind of nothing else. She lives in a really small studio in a questionable part of San Diego and sleeps on a twin mattress, and she just has piles of her life everywhere. And it's so sad. So, Mom, this is for you. Because your story inspired me. And I realized that the whole time when you were being my mom, you were also being an angel to me.